I have been with this woman for 13 years, married 11. We dated in high school for a short stint, about 2 years. And after high school we went our separate ways. We broke up because I felt she wanted to hang out with her friends more in high school, which I thought was selfish at that age, but as I got older I figured that may have been sort of controlling type behavior. Well, fast forward 5 years, she moved away, got involved with some guy, moved in with him, and I was told they were going to get married, but that didn't happen, so she moved back home and moved in with her parents until she could get on her feet. I didn't know this until I was out with a friend of mine at a bar, and I saw her with a group of her old friends. I walked over and asked, "Hey, what are you doing back?" She looked at me and said it was a long story. She eventually said that her boyfriend at the time messed around on her. After leaving her ex-boyfriend and settling him back home, she eventually got a job at the local hospital as a pediatric nurse. During this time we saw a lot of each other, got close again, and started seeing each other. She wasn't the same person I dated in high school. I mean, she was an extrovert then, but more so now. We got really serious right around 2008. In 2010 we got married. She was still working at the hospital, and I was working to take over my dad's real estate company. To be honest, everything was good. I didn't want to buy a house yet, so my dad owned a couple of houses, very nice homes at that, and told me I could stay in one of them until we were ready to actually buy our own. He wanted to sell them. He rented out so many of his homes over the years, and now he wanted to sell a couple. I actually thought our marriage was really good. We were well off, didn't struggle financially. We don't have any kids. She wasn't able to have kids due to a medical issue, but that didn't stop me from loving her because she couldn't bear children. We had a close-knit group of friends. We would have date nights, go bowling together. As I said, everything was good. She belonged to a bowling league that she and a couple of her girlfriends did a few nights a week. I would attend some of her matches, but not all the time. I wasn't the jealous or controlling type. When she said she was hanging out with the girls, I didn't mind. She hung out with 3 women, 2 of them were married, and one of them was in a long-term relationship, so I didn't have any trust issues at the time. Plus, our bedroom life was great. I didn't complain, and neither did she. Well, at least not to me. The first 6 years of our marriage was awesome. We did everything together. She was working at the hospital and I was working with my dad at the real estate firm. Then I noticed a slight change in the way she dressed. When she went to work, she always wore scrubs to work, but shortly after the beginning of the year I noticed she was wearing certain clothes that fit her well. I really didn't think anything of it because she didn't want to wear her scrubs. I figured maybe she is stopping somewhere before work. She had 12-hour shifts, but then she started coming home later than she used to, and she always had an excuse. She would say she was working overtime or she had to stay late to finish something. I couldn't refute that because sometimes her 12-hour shift would turn into 14, 15-hour shifts, so her cheating on me never ever crossed my mind. Just figured it was part of her job. This went on for about 6 months. Then one day I was at home. I left work early one day at about 7:30 p.m. I hear my wife's car pull into the driveway, and I looked out the window briefly. To my surprise, she was on her phone, and she blew a kiss at someone. When she did that, she looked around to see if anyone was looking. She didn't see me, but that was strange and suspicious. When she got in the house, I asked her about that. She looked a little surprised, and she told me she was FaceTiming her mom and she blew her a kiss. I said, "Oh, okay, now remember, our bedroom life is still really good. It hasn't fallen off or anything." About 3 weeks go by. My wife says she and the girls wanted to take a vacation together to celebrate her recently getting a raise. Just the 3 of them. Her other friend that works at the hospital with her got a raise as well. Their other friend doesn't work at the hospital. She works at a law firm, and they wanted to celebrate a little by going on a cruise for 5 days. They had to plan their vacation at the same time so they can all go at the same time. Another month goes by, and they finally were able to have their schedules coincide with each other to take the vacation they wanted. I was suspicious at first, but I didn't want to spoil her mood and confront her about my feelings, so I didn't say anything. Well, that day I was the one that took them all to the airport. Her other 2 friends, significant others, had to work, so I agreed to take them all. They were flying from Washington, D.C. to Miami, Florida. Before I dropped them all off, I told my wife to call me when she got to Miami, and I reminded the other 2 ladies to check in with their guys. They said they would. Well, to my surprise, I never heard from my wife until really late that night, and she sounded like she was drunk. She said her and her girlfriends are in her room drinking. I told her to be careful. We said goodnight, and I told her to call me the next day. Well, the next day came, and I didn't hear from my wife or her girlfriends, and I didn't call her either, so she only had a few more days left on her cruise. When I got home that day, I checked the mail and noticed the phone bill was in the mail. The envelope was kind of thick. I opened it and started to look at it briefly, and wow, the phone bill was quite high this month. Upon further inspection, I noticed there was one particular number I didn't recognize. Actually, there were a couple of numbers I didn't recognize, so I did a Google search on 3 numbers that wasn't part of my contacts. All of them had a New York City area code. I remembered that's where she was living with her ex-boyfriend before she came back home to DC, but why 3 numbers? So I wanted to know, how can I find out who she is talking to without her knowing it? She has a smartphone, so I called one of my friends. He is a certified geek. I tell him my concerns. He then tells me Here in 2021, you can clone someone's phone without even touching it. I said, what? He said, that's possible now. I said, I don't believe that. He then tells me come to his shop and he will show me. He told me since she had an iPhone, if I had access to her iCloud account, he could do it, and I did have access. He said, even if she deletes text messages, that won't matter. Sure enough, he showed me, and that's how I found out she was cheating on me. She was cheating on me before she left for her trip. She cheated with one guy here in DC. Met him from a dating site. Apparently the day she was supposed to be working, she would take her scrubs and pretend she was going to work, but calling off when she left the house. The other 3 numbers belonged to men from New York, and one guy was an ex-boyfriend. Apparently they all met up in Miami and went on this cruise together. The most horrific thing, this is when I found out she was cheating with these 3 men on the cruise. I found that out because when the guys went back to their rooms, they were sending text messages back and forth to my wife. So basically my wife and her girlfriends went on this vacation to cheat. Once I had all this information, I had planned to go see an attorney to ask him what I can do. My wife was scheduled to come back in a few days, so I had a lot to do. I contacted an attorney and asked him what my options were. He said we have to be separated. So, since I didn't own the house and she didn't own the house, I didn't think there would be an issue with spousal support. He tells me even though she cheated, you still have to be separated for at least a year before you can proceed with the divorce. So, I thanked the attorney for his time and called my dad. I told him the horrific news about finding out my wife cheating on me, but I told my dad. The attorney said I still had to be separated for a year, and he came up with the craziest idea. He told me, I can send you a letter saying you have to be out by a certain date because I have a contract to sell the house. She has to go, but you can move into the other home. I said, wait, what if the house doesn't sell by that date? He says, that's not a big deal. She still has to go. Deals fall through all the time. She doesn't have to know that. My dad then says, go ahead and pack your things. I will help you move into the other home. He then asks, when will my wife be back? I told him she will be back tomorrow. My dad says, he will be at my place within the next hour. So, after talking to my dad, I drove home and started packing my things. About an hour later, my dad pulls up in this big U-Haul and has 2 other men with him. We spent just under 3 hours getting all of my stuff. The only thing I left in the house was the bedroom set. Everything else I took. We then drove to the other house, which she doesn't know about, and unloaded. After my dad and his 2 friends moved me, I made a call to one of my wife's friend's husband and asked him, could he pick them up from the airport tomorrow. I told him I had to work. He agreed. My next move was to go to Staples and print out all the text messages and put them in a big envelope and leave them on the kitchen counter so she will know that I found out that she was cheating before she left for her trip. And on her trip, once I took care of Staples, I called Verizon to change my number. I gave it to my dad and a few of my friends and told them why I was changing my number. They were floored. Well, the next day, little after 2 p.m., my dad calls me and says my wife was looking for me. She was frantic. He simply told her that he left for a good reason. He told me after he said that, she hung up the phone. A couple of my friends called me as well. They told me she was asking where I was. No one told her. By this time, I knew she has been to the house and seen the envelope I left for her, so I calculated that the separation clock would start from the day she got back. Since it wasn't mutual, I have to wait a year. In the meantime, my dad says he sent a certified letter to my wife saying that he had a contract on the house and a sale was pending and she had to be out by a certain date. The week goes by. I asked my dad and some of my friends who had contact with my wife, have they heard from her lately? Was she still blowing up their phones? Well, they all said they really haven't heard much from her, so I thought, okay, this is going as planned, until I pulled up into the parking lot of my dad's business and she was waiting for me. As soon as she sees me, she jumps out of her car and runs over to me. I asked her what is she doing here. She said she wanted to talk. I told her we have nothing to talk about with the exception of divorce. I said, other than that, we have nothing to say to each other. I walked off. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her just stand there. Once I walked into the building, I saw her get into her car and leave. Even though she cheated on me, that was the hardest thing for me to do. I worship that woman, and for her to do that to me shattered me to the core. My dad came over and asked, was I okay after that? I told him I will be okay. A couple of weeks go by, and I walk in the building and my dad said my wife dropped off a letter for me. To my surprise, it's a long letter apologizing and she wanted to talk about separation. She goes on to say, she knows that's what I want and is willing to give it to me. I showed the letter to my dad. He then says, if you both agree, that means you don't have to wait a year. You can just be separated for 6 months and then file for your divorce. In the letter, she said she would come back in a few days here at my office to discuss it. Well, this is heartbreaking for me. I never thought this woman would cheat on me like that, and with her friends. I don't know about the other guys. I don't know if they found out that their partners cheated on them. I didn't tell them, although I felt I should. But I didn't. I believe they will find out soon enough. I am grateful for the geeky advice I got about the phone thing. Cloning a phone never crossed my mind. I almost hired a private investigator, but that would have only gotten me evidence here in DC. I would have never known she was unfaithful with 3 other men on her so-called vacation cruise. Not sure if I will be back, but a friend of mine said I should give this forum a try. I am not divorced yet, but it looks like I don't have to. Wait a year to be separated. I am happy about that. As long as she still agrees to the separation, I want to thank everyone for. I'm a 40-year-old man working as a finance manager at a local bank in a mid-sized town. My days are filled with numbers reports and managing a small team living in a community where people know each other. I've settled into a comfortable routine. My home is a modest house in a neighborhood filled with familiar faces. I find joy in small things. The laughter of friends during weekend get-togethers, the excitement in my children's eyes during family game nights, and the satisfaction of tending to my garden. The stability of my job and the predictability of my life have brought a sense of contentment. Bills are paid on time. Vacations are planned well in advance, and every day follows a familiar pattern. While others might find this routine dull, for me it's a haven. It's a life built on hard work and consistent choices, reflecting values like responsibility, integrity, and dedication to family. Over the span of 15 years, our marriage was punctuated by important milestones. There were anniversaries celebrated with quiet dinners and surprise trips, the birth of our children, and the triumph of overcoming challenges like job changes and health scares. These events served as markers of our journey, each one a testament to our life and the love we believed would endure. Our shared accomplishments were not just personal, but also professional. We cheered for each other's career advancements and supported each other through decisions like moving to our mid-sized town for my stable job. We took pride in small victories too, like paying off our first car, renovating our home, or planning a family vacation abroad. Our marriage was not without its trials. We faced financial pressures, disagreements over parenting, and the regular stresses of daily life. But every storm was weathered together hand in hand. Even when it seemed insurmountable, these trials were woven into the fabric of our relationship, each one strengthening our resolve and reinforcing our belief in one another. Despite the ups and downs, there was a profound sense of contentment. We had built something solid, something that felt unbreakable. We laughed together, cried together, and faced the world together. I held an unwavering belief that whatever lay ahead, we would conquer it together. Our love was tested time and time again, and we had always emerged stronger. Looking back at those years, everything seemed to click. Our dreams were coming true. Our love was growing and the future looked bright. We believed in us, in what we had and what we could achieve. Over time, subtle shifts began to creep into our marriage. Once clear lines of communication seemed to blur. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly became stilted. Smiles that came easily were replaced with blank stares. Arguments became more frequent. At first they were about trivial things like household chores or plans for the weekend, but gradually they became more intense and lingering, exposing underlying issues we had never faced before. A detachment grew between us, a widening gap that seemed impossible to bridge. I started feeling like a bystander in my marriage, watching as something precious slipped away. Even when we were together, her mind seemed far away. The dreams and plans we shared were replaced with a silence that was both deafening and confusing. My wife's job as a pharmaceutical rep had always been demanding, but now it seemed to consume her. The late-night calls, the long trips away from home, and the constant stress started to take a toll on us both. I found myself growing uneasy about her frequent travels. Questions began to form in my mind. Why were there so many late-night meetings? Why did she seem so distant? Even when she was home, I tried to understand, to believe that this was just a phase, that the woman I had married was still there behind the demands of her job and the strains of daily life. But doubts began to grow, feeding on the small changes and the growing unease. Something was off, and though I couldn't put my finger on it, the feeling was impossible to shake off. My wife's job as a pharmaceutical rep was more than just a career to her. It was a calling. She had an uncanny ability to connect with clients, to understand their needs, and to represent her products with a genuine passion. Over the years, she climbed the ranks, becoming one of the top reps in her company. Her success was a source of pride for both of us, reflecting her hard work, intelligence, and dedication. Her role required frequent travel to different cities, meeting with healthcare providers, attending conferences and networking events. The glamorous hotels and business dinners were part of her world, one that was exciting but also demanding. Late nights, early flights, and the constant pressure to perform were all part of the package. Her phone was never off. Her email was never closed, and her suitcase was always packed for the next trip. While I admired her success and celebrated her achievements, There was a part of me that was concerned about the toll her career was taking on our relationship. The long hours, the weekends away, the constant juggling of her professional and personal life. It all started to add up. I found myself missing the woman who used to put us first, who used to have time for our dreams and our life together. My pride in her accomplishments was tinged with the longing for the connection we once had. Her success was not the problem. It was the growing distance. The feeling that her job was not just a part of her life, but had become the entirety of her life. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that the balance we had once maintained so effortlessly had shifted. Her career was thriving, but at what cost to us? I tried to be supportive, to understand, but the doubts and fears lingered, hinting at something deeper, something that neither of us was willing to face. It was a Sunday like any other. With my wife away on another business trip, I decided to tackle some cleaning, something to keep my mind occupied and the loneliness at bay while rummaging through a drawer filled with forgotten gadgets and tangled cords. My fingers stumbled upon an old iPad. It was the one my wife used to use before upgrading to a newer model covered in dust. Its screen dull and lifeless. It seemed like a relic of another time. I decided to charge the old iPad. Maybe there were pictures on it, memories of happier times, something to fill the silence of the empty house. The iPad charged. I sat down to explore its contents, expecting nothing more than a trip down memory lane. Well, what I got was something completely different. As I navigated through old photos and forgotten apps, a notification caught my eye. Unopened messages. Intrigued, I opened the messaging app and my heart stopped. Messages from two different men filled with words that tore through me like knives, intimate conversations, plans, explicit photos, secrets, all laid bare in cold digital text. The truth was unmistakable. My wife had cheated. I spent the rest of the night reeling, lost in a haze of confusion and grief. How had this happened? How had I not seen it? How could the woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, betray me in this way? The following days were a blur of emotion and confusion. The evidence was there, undeniable, but confronting my wife, the woman I had loved and trusted for 15 years, was a task I dreaded. I knew that I had to face her to demand answers, but how does one prepare for a conversation that will undoubtedly shatter everything? She returned from her business trip, weary, but smiling, unaware of what was about to hit her. Her cheerful greeting stuck in my throat as I faced her, the iPad in hand, with anger and disbelief. I asked her outright, showed her the messages, and watched her face turn from confusion to realization. And then to a desperate panic. She began to apologize profusely, tears streaming down her face. Her words, a torrent of excuses, explanations, and pleas for forgiveness. She claimed it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, that she loved me. Still, her words, once so comforting, didn't mean to me. Now her apologies seemed rehearsed. Her excuses feeble. She wanted to try marriage counseling to work things out, but I could only see the betrayal. I told her no, my decision was final. I could not forget. I could not forgive. The trust that had been the bedrock of our relationship was gone, destroyed by her actions. She continued to plead, to beg. Even as I walked away, she was super desperate, but it was too late. The damage was done and there was no turning back. The decision was made, but the path ahead was fraught with complexity and emotional turmoil. I began the process of seeking legal counsel, navigating the labyrinthine legal system, and facing the reality of disentangling our lives. The logistics were overwhelming, but the emotional toll was even greater. The divorce proceedings were painful and draining. There were assets to be divided, agreements to be reached, and every step was a reminder of the betrayal and the love lost despite her pleas for reconciliation. My wife was compliant in the legal process. She wasn't seeking alimony and she seemed resigned to the divorce, even though her eyes still held a glimmer of hope. The day of the divorce hearing arrived, a somber occasion that marked the end of a 15-year journey. In that courtroom we faced each other, no longer husband and wife, but adversaries in a legal battle. My wife's plea for reconciliation persisted. Even there, her voice broke as she asked the judge for more time, a chance to save the marriage, but it was too late. The judge ordered us to split all assets, and my 15 years of marriage was over just like that. To this day, I still haven't told our kids who were in college that was agreed upon until they come home for break. About 7 months after the divorce, we sold the house and split the equity. Even at the closing, So many months after the divorce, my ex-wife was still trying to get back with me. I simply told her no chance in hell that was happening. This happened 18 months ago. Our kids know now, and they wanted to know what happened. And I told them to say they were devastated was an understatement. We have a son and a daughter anyway, they are coping. And I want to thank everyone who has taken My name is Jack, and for the longest time I lived what seemed like a dream. I married Emily, my college sweetheart. The woman who captured my heart with her vibrant smile and infectious laugh. We were blessed with twins, Alex and Ava, who brought endless joy into our lives. Our home in the suburbs of New York was filled with love, laughter, and the chaos that comes with raising young children. I worked as an architect, a job that and passion for design. Emily, with her flair for communication and charisma, thrived in her career in public relations. Her job was demanding, often requiring late nights and weekend work, but she always seemed to balance it with family life. Her success made me proud, and I never begrudged her the time spent away from home. After all, we were a team, supporting each other's ambitions and dreams. Our life seemed almost too good to be true. We had wonderful friends, our weekends often filled with backyard barbecues or birthday parties for the twins. Emily and I shared a social circle that included her colleagues and our neighbors, a community that felt like an extended family. But as perfect as our life appeared, I couldn't shake off a nagging feeling that something was amiss. Emily's phone was constantly buzzing with texts and emails. She assured me it was just work, but there was an intensity to her correspondence that seemed excessive, even for her demanding job. I tried to dismiss my concerns, attributing them to the natural ebb and flow of marriage and the stresses of our busy lives. It wasn't just her phone habits that had changed. Emily started going on more work trips, her schedule becoming increasingly unpredictable. It's just a busy season at work, she'd explain. I wanted to believe her, to trust in the woman I loved, but a small voice in my head whispered doubts that I couldn't silence. Our conversations started to feel more superficial, our interactions more routine. I missed the deep, meaningful talks we used to have, the way she'd share her hopes and fears with me. Now it seemed like she was always distracted, her thoughts elsewhere. Despite these changes, I clung to the belief that our love was strong enough to weather any storm. I focused on being the best father and husband I could be, hoping that whatever was causing the distance between us would soon pass. The day my perfect world began to crumble was a chilly autumn evening. I had been away in Chicago for a work conference, a project that I was leading for the first time. Eager to share my success and experiences, I decided to return home a day earlier, thinking of the surprise and joy it would bring to Emily and our twins. As I drove home from the airport, with Alex and Ava chatting excitedly in the back seat about showing their mom the souvenirs they had picked out, my heart swelled with love and anticipation. The image of Emily's delighted face upon our unexpected return played over and over in my mind. Approaching our house, I noticed that all the lights were off except for our bedroom. She must be working late again, I thought to myself. As we got out of the car, I told the twins to be quiet so we could surprise their mom. The three of us tiptoed to the front door, our whispers and giggles a contrast to the but as I looked up to our bedroom window, hoping to catch a glimpse of Emily possibly working at her desk. The scene that met my eyes was like a dagger through my heart. There, in our sanctuary, the place where we had shared so many intimate moments, was my wife with another man. Her boss, a man I had shared drinks with, discussed projects with, was in my bed with my wife. The world around me seemed to freeze. The laughter and excitement of the twins suddenly felt distant, as if coming from another world. My hands trembled, my breath caught in my throat. How could this be happening? Was this a nightmare? I quickly ushered Alex and Ava inside. Away from the window, my mind a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and pain. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Ava asked, her innocent eyes searching mine for answers I couldn't give. I managed a strained smile, assuring them everything was fine, even as my world was falling apart. That night, I put the twins to bed, reading their favorite story with a forced cheerfulness. As they drifted off to sleep, I sat in the living room, the silence deafening, the images from the bedroom window replaying in my mind. I didn't confront Emily that night. Instead, I lay awake, the haunting question swirling in my mind. How long had this been going on? Was our entire life together a lie? What did this mean for our children, for our future? As dawn broke, I made a decision. I needed to know the full extent of Emily's betrayal. I couldn't confront her with just suspicions and a single painful image. I needed proof, undeniable evidence that would reveal the truth of the life I thought I knew. In the following days, I moved through life like a ghost, my interactions mechanical, my thoughts consumed by the betrayal. I maintained a semblance of normalcy for the sake of the twins, but inside I was in turmoil. Emily seemed oblivious to my inner struggle, her demeanor unchanged, which only fueled my suspicions and hurt. I contacted a private investigator, a decision that felt like crossing an irreversible threshold. The PI was professional and discreet, promising to gather information with utmost confidentiality. As I provided details about Emily's schedule, her work, and our life, a sense of surrealism washed over me. How had our life come to this? The investigation was thorough. The PI followed Emily, documenting her movements, her meetings. The evidence that came back was a mosaic of deception. It wasn't just her boss. There were others, colleagues, acquaintances, even old friends. The extent of her infidelity was staggering. But the most painful revelation was the realization that many in our circle knew about Emily's affairs. Friends we had vacationed with, colleagues we had entertained in our home, even her sister, they were all aware of her duplicity. The sense of betrayal deepened, extending beyond my marriage to encompass my entire social world. I struggled to comprehend the reality that the life I had been living was a facade. The woman I had loved and trusted, the mother of my children, had been leading a double life, one that everyone seemed to know about but me. The feelings of humiliation, anger, and grief were overwhelming. The evidence from the PI gave me a clear picture, but it also left me with a difficult decision. What should I do with this information? How could I confront the mother of my children, my partner of over a decade, with such damning evidence? I knew I couldn't ignore what I had learned. For my own sanity, for the future of my children, I needed to confront Emily. But the thought of that confrontation, of bringing all the lies and betrayal into the open, filled me with dread. In the end, I realized that the truth, however painful, was the only path forward. It was time to face the reality of our broken marriage, to confront the woman I had shared my life with and demand answers to the questions that tormented me. The day I decided to confront Emily is etched in my memory, a defining moment in my life. I waited for the twins to be at school, ensuring they would be shielded from the impending storm. My heart raced and my palms were sweaty as I heard her car pull into the driveway. Emily entered the house, her face reflecting the usual stress and fatigue from work. She didn't immediately notice the seriousness in my demeanor. "Jack, you're home early. Is everything okay?" she asked casually, hanging her coat. I took a deep breath, my voice steady but cold. "We need to talk, Emily. It's about us, about our marriage." Her expression shifted from casual to concerned. "What's wrong? Are the kids okay?" "The kids are fine. This is about us, Emily. Or rather, it's about you." I paused, gathering my courage. "I know about the affairs, Emily. All of them." The room fell silent. Emily's face drained of color, her eyes widened in shock. For a moment she said nothing, and then the floodgates opened. Denial, anger, and finally a reluctant acceptance. "How did you find out?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I explained about the private investigator, about the evidence I had gathered. Emily listened, her face a mask of shock and guilt. "I never meant to hurt you," she started, but her words felt hollow, rehearsed. I listened as she tried to explain, to justify her actions. She spoke of feeling unfulfilled, of a need for excitement and validation. But her words sounded like excuses, attempts to rationalize the irreparable harm she had caused our family. The conversation was long and painful. We argued, we cried, and in the end we sat in silence, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavily between us. The woman I thought I knew, the life I thought we had built together, it was all a lie. In the days that followed, I grappled with a range of emotions. Anger, sorrow, disbelief, and a profound sense of loss. Our marriage, once the bedrock of my life, was now in ruins. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. Our relationship could never return to what it once was. The trust was shattered, and with it, the love I once felt for Emily. The process of divorce was a labyrinth of emotions and legal formalities, each step a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. The meetings with lawyers were clinical and sterile, stripping the marriage of its emotional essence, reducing it to assets, liabilities, and custody arrangements. The primary focus, however, remained clear throughout the well-being and stability of Alex and Ava. Adjusting to life as a single parent was challenging. The house, once filled with the sounds of a family, now echoed with a different tone. I took up the mantle of both mother and father in many respects, ensuring that the twins' life remained as uninterrupted as possible. We established new routines, new traditions, carving out a sense of normalcy in the wake of upheaval. I grappled with the loneliness that often crept in after the twins were asleep. The silence of the house was a stark contrast to the chaos of daytime activities. I found solace in late-night work, immersing myself in my architectural designs, or sometimes just sitting in the twins' room, watching them sleep, drawing strength from their peaceful faces. Telling our friends and family about the divorce brought a range of reactions. The conversations were often difficult, filled with awkward pauses and unspoken questions. The sense of betrayal extended beyond Emily, reaching into these relationships as well. Trust, once a given in these relationships, now felt like a fragile, elusive thing. As I navigated the complexities of divorce, I also embarked on a journey of self-discovery. I reconnected with old hobbies and passions that I had set aside. I began running in the mornings, the solitude of the runs providing a space for reflection and healing. I also joined a support group for single parents, where sharing experiences and advice brought a sense of community and understanding. Emily's journey through the divorce was a tumultuous one. Initially, there was a sense of defiance in her demeanor, a refusal to fully acknowledge the devastation her actions had caused. She would oscillate between moments of anger and tearful apologies, the latter often coming in late-night calls or unexpected visits. As the legal proceedings progressed, the reality of the situation seemed to settle in. There were moments of clarity where she expressed genuine remorse, particularly during discussions about the impact on Alex and Ava. These moments were painful, a reminder of the deep connection we once shared, now tainted by betrayal. Our co-parenting relationship was strained, yet functional. We agreed on a schedule that prioritized the twins' needs, ensuring they had equal time with each parent. Seeing Emily during handovers was initially difficult, each encounter a reminder of the hurt. But over time, a routine established, a new normal that was less about us and more about providing stability for Alex and Ava. Despite the challenges, Emily remained an involved mother. She attended school events, was there for doctor's appointments, and maintained her role in the twins' lives. It was a delicate balancing act, managing the remnants of our shared past while building separate futures. Throughout this period, I saw changes in Emily. The facade of the perfect life she had maintained for so long seemed to crumble, revealing a more vulnerable, introspective person. It was a side of her I hadn't seen in years, perhaps a side that got lost in the pursuit of whatever it was she was seeking in those affairs. As the final papers of the divorce were signed, a chapter of my life closed, but another began. The pain of the past still lingered, but it was gradually being replaced by a cautious optimism about the future. I focused on rebuilding not just my life but my sense of self. The experience, as harrowing as it was, taught me about resilience, about the capacity to rise from adversity. I found strength in my role as a father, in the unconditional love Alex and Ava showed me. Their laughter and joy were reminders of the good that remained in my life. I also rediscovered my passion for architecture. My work became not just a job, but a creative outlet, a means of expressing and rebuilding myself. I took on new projects, each a step towards creating a new identity, separate from the man who was defined by his marriage and its subsequent failure. The journey also led to a reevaluation of my relationships. Friendships that had survived the turmoil grew stronger, built on a foundation of shared experiences and renewed trust. I also formed new connections with people who entered my life in the aftermath of the divorce, offering fresh perspectives and unwavering support. Looking ahead, the future is a canvas of possibilities. I am no longer just a man who was betrayed, but a father, a professional, and an individual with dreams and aspirations. I step into this new chapter with an open heart and a mind ready to embrace whatever comes next, knowing that I have the strength to face it. This journey has been one of profound transformation. From the ashes of a broken marriage, I have emerged with a deeper understanding of myself, of what it means to be resilient, and of the value of genuine relationships. It's a story that began with betrayal, but has evolved into a narrative of growth, healing, and hope. I step forward with a sense of purpose and optimism, ready to explore new horizons, to forge new paths. The future is unwritten, and I am the author of this next chapter. With Alex and Ava by my side, and a renewed sense of self, I am ready for the adventures that await. As this chapter of our story closes, I want to invite you, my viewers, to be a part of the ongoing narrative. Your thoughts, experiences, and insights are invaluable, and I'd love to hear them. Share your thoughts. What did you think of this story? Were there moments that resonated with you, or aspects you found particularly moving? Let's discuss in the comments below your experiences. Have you or someone you know gone through a similar experience? How did you or they navigate the challenges presented? Sharing your stories can offer support and insight to others in similar situations. Subscribe for more. If you're new to the channel or haven't yet subscribed, consider joining our community. We share stories like this regularly, providing a space for reflection, learning, and connection. Like and share. If you found this story impactful, please give it a like and share it with friends. It might offer perspective, comfort, or understanding. Found out my wife of almost 6 years was planning on cheating. As the title says, I woke up this morning around 11 a.m. My wife said she was going to make breakfast. So I was in charge of our son while she was cooking. My wife normally gives my son her phone to watch super simple songs. YouTube channel. My son is 15 months and sometimes will exit out of the videos onto another app. So we have to put it back when he hands us the phone. So when he did this, he handed me the phone and it was on my wife's messages with someone under her best friend's phone name, with messages that they were planning on meeting up on a date. She told me she had to go for a convention at work. I love her to death, but I can't get past this. When I tried to talk, she wouldn't give a straight answer, and we practically got nowhere on the subject. Sorry for it seeming rushed. Currently, I'm an emotional wreck. I never thought this would happen to me, but my wife has just admitted to sleeping with another man. She slept with a man who is younger than both of us. He is 21. He is from a very rich family. She wants to be in an open relationship with him. And if I do not let her see him, she says she cannot love me anymore. In fact, after I initially freaked out over the whole thing, she closed down, said she cannot feel anything but numbness and that she is meant to be polyamorous. I'm 29 years old. We have 3 children. I'm so broken down. I do not know what to do, what to say, what my course of action is going forward. I've never been so devastated. And she is crying more about losing her lover than she is about hurting me. He was going to teach her trading Bitcoin and make her rich. And when I confronted the guy and he left, she started blaming me for him leaving. Shit. I don't know what to do. I do not have a great job. My wife is the one with a nice university degree. She is the ambitious one. Me, I am just a dedicated father, husband. Well, I guess I'm so unmotivated. I kind of want to die. I cannot tell anyone. I feel like they would just judge me, call me weak, useless, whatever. She's been dramatic for years. She has mental health issues for which she refuses medication. None of which is an excuse, but I'm just lost. I don't want to have a divorce right away. My parents have a lot on their plate as it is. My grandparents are so old and frail, and these are uncertain times. But my wife just closed off, says she does not love me, says she is even afraid of me because I had the audacity to shout and break her clock radio when she admitted to being intimate with a stranger. And I shouldn't say stranger, they have been talking for months. Damn, what do I do? At this point, what can I do? I want to just feel like a man again. I want to feel in charge of things. I want to feel like I matter at all, even just a tiny bit, like someone worthy of respect, but years of handling her shit got me nowhere. And it's all gone poof until she admitted this to me 3 days ago today. I felt like we had something good in spite of our troubles, our struggles, being young and raising a family. I even thought drama was supposed to be part of things, a natural order of things sort of situation. But it got more and more extreme. And now I just kind of want to die or crawl in a ditch or run away from it all, which I cannot because I am broken. I have kids who need me. I have never been a guy lacking in confidence. I am not bad looking. I am not a cheater or a bad guy. I provide, do what needs to be done. Sure, I have my weaknesses, but shit, I've worshipped the floor this woman walks on for as long as I can remember. And right now I feel like dog shit. All my confidence, my ability to believe in myself, it just went out the window. She even got the guy to come to our home so I could talk to him. He's not a good-looking guy. He's cocky. He's into some sort of enlightenment stuff which my wife is into as well. There are fans of a certain Indian guru and try to find freedom from all attachment, which I suppose includes me. TLDR, my wife cheated on me, says she does not love me, but neither of us want or can't afford a divorce right now. I have no one to tell, I have nothing, no plan of action, and I feel at my lowest point ever. Please help me out a bit if you can. I caught my wife being unfaithful a couple of years ago, so I'm going to try and explain the best I can in hopes to get advice. I'm 30 and my wife is 31. A little backstory first, I met my wife in high school and we got together and we're happy. We've been together for 14 years and have been married for 12 years. After we got married, we had 3 beautiful children, 2 daughters and a son. A couple of years ago, I started noticing that my wife got pretty distant and acting weird. Before this, I had some bedroom kinks while we were intimate. She became distant and acting weird. And I knew this because we've been together so long. Anyways, one night while she was sleeping, I had this itching feeling to take her phone. So I did. I checked messages, nothing. And then I checked Facebook Messenger and this is where my heart sank to my stomach. I found conversations with her friend about a guy who I will call Jack. She would talk about how I was in the bedroom and all my secrets. I feel as though whatever goes in the bedroom should stay there. Well, apparently she took a fantasy I had and decided to act on it in real life behind my back. This went on for months. And at some point she met up with Jack. Her friend was disapproving of it, by the way. So I wake her up, mind you that it was maybe 3 a.m. to confront her. And she said nothing other than sorry, I couldn't get it all out of her at once. But she admitted that she'd met up with Jack once, but I find that hard to believe. Anyways, I tell her that she needs to block Jack. And she did. I was all over the place as my emotions got the best of me. I said, go ahead and continue as you would normally. And she didn't hesitate to re-add him as a friend. I got mad at this. She said that he's a good friend and she didn't want to lose him. So days passed and I decided to try to make it work. If she tells me everything, which she told me a lot, but to this day, I feel as though she's held back on the details. I guess the question I have, or what do? I feel that more happened as this went on for months. If you fast forward to now, she is back to being cold towards me and yells every day that I come back and it's eating away at my soul. Did she tell me everything before? Did she cheat more than that? Am I stupid for believing her? Is it possible that I should be worried? Some of the kids aren't mine. And is she doing it again? Thanks, Reddit. I know I'm all over the place, but this bothers me to no end, lol. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks. Update on post. I didn't expect all the feedback that I'm getting. And I want to say that I value everyone's advice. I think now I'm going to go through with paternity tests and STD tests. Eventually I'll talk with the lawyer about my options and what I can't do. One thing, I don't think I explained it well, but I had to block Jack myself as she wanted to keep him as a friend. So far, I think I've realized that my mental health is not going to be great. If I keep the dirt swept under a rug, I've talked to my mother-in-law about what her daughter did to me. She didn't believe me at first, but after I said it 2 more times, she said I can't believe her. I didn't raise her that way. And she said sorry to me. She then asked if I'm going to leave her daughter. And I said that I didn't know. Thanks for all the support y'all have been giving. I will give another update the further I go. Thanks, Redditors. My fiancé had an emotional affair over the last few months with her ex. I found out over the weekend that my fiancé has been in contact with her ex for the past few months. Ex knew we were together, but did not know we were engaged until this past weekend. We got engaged in December 2020. When this all came to a head, my fiancé told me that she picked me and cut ties then and there with her ex. She told me she realized how much I meant to her. When the possibility of losing me became apparent to her, she admitted she was wrong and that she wants to make it up to me. They never met up while my fiancé and I have been together. But they shared emotional messages saying they still care for one another and could not stop thinking about each other. Before this happened, I believed I would end their relationship if I was ever cheated on. But living through this, I still love her and want to be with her. I have not forgiven her yet, and my trust in her has been shattered. But if she is willing to work things out, then so am I. I truly believe she is my soulmate. My question is, how do I cope with infidelity? There was no sexual infidelity, but an emotional one with her ex. How can I work past this and be stronger than we were before? Please do not try to talk to me out of staying with her because I have made my decision. I just need help navigating this. She is currently out of town and will be back Tuesday. So, we have not talked about this in person yet. What are some questions I should ask? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. TLDR. My fiancé has been in contact with her ex, exchanging emotional messages when we just got engaged last month. 12 years together and unsure what to do. Hi everyone. First time posting on Reddit. I kind of didn't know where else to turn. And I just wanted to tell my story. Maybe see if there was any thoughts from the community while I was at it. This is a bit wordy, so I apologize in advance. My partner, 27 female, and I, 28 male, met in high school and have been together for 12 plus years. We've been engaged for about 3 years and were due to get married in 2020, which didn't happen. Thanks COVID. We relocated from Australia to the UK at the very end of 2019 to follow my partner's career. As she gotten into a master's degree at a college here in London, we were both so excited for the move and keen on a change of scenery. Living in Europe was something that we had both always talked about and could envision in our future, but it was surreal when it became a reality. For obvious reasons, 2020 didn't really turn out to be the year. We'd hoped. I landed a job in December 2019 and was forced to work from home from March 2020. My partner's college shut their doors and she moved to online teaching for the foreseeable future. All of our travel plans were canceled one by one, and eventually we had to cancel our wedding plans. Fast forward to December 1st. My partner had been out with some of her friends from college the night previous and didn't come home. She told me she left her keys here and didn't want to make the trek home, so she would stay at a friend's place. I was fine with this. We're both very easygoing and we always allowed each other the freedom to do stuff with or without each other. I always felt a deep sense of trust in our relationship and I was never the possessive or jealous type to begin with. She came home on the 1st and said we needed to talk. We sat down in our room and she told me that she had slept with one of her friends from college and stayed at his place overnight. I was completely shell-shocked, numb, confused, and in a complete state of disbelief. We decided it would be good for her to stay with a friend, while we let the dust settle and work on our own feelings. This is where things become tricky. She effectively ran out of couches to surf in about 3 weeks, which meant that she would have to come home. Being a student paying international fees here in the UK and on her current visa, she's not able to work enough hours to support herself. So, the only option was for her to move back in and for us to work on things while living under the same roof, sparing you the details. I'll just say that after a very rocky period, the Christmas holiday that we spent together started to feel normal again. We had many long discussions about how we ended up in this position, and what may have contributed to a breakdown in our relationship and communication. After a brief reprieve, as the end of the holidays approached, we started having more serious conversations. One thing I mentioned before, she slept with a friend of hers from her cohort at college. It turns out that this person is someone that she will be constantly seeing as their cohort is extremely small and they have the same classes. Without giving too much away, my partner is studying in an arts theater line of work. And this person is someone she will need to work with very closely in the coming 3 years. Someone that she might even get a cast in a romantic role with, or at least likely to be on stage in close rehearsal with very regularly. She has reassured me that it was a one-time mistake and that their relationship would be purely professional from now on, no more friendship. They are due to start rehearsal for a scene that the college is putting on from this week, and the thought of them talking, laughing, or being friendly makes my stomach churn. Every time I think of them being in contact, I am overwhelmed by a wave of sadness, worry, insecurity, and fear about what it means. Each time I'm reminded of the infidelity, which is almost daily now that she's back there. All of the feelings of pain from when it first happened are thrown back to the front of my mind. I want to work on our relationship and make things better, but I feel like I relive the pain of her infidelity every single day by knowing she's talking to the person she slept with. She's also been incredibly remorseful, sorry, and has expressed a regret and desire to mend our relationship. Does the pain go away? Am I just prolonging the inevitable and torturing myself unnecessarily? Any thoughts, help, or advice would be greatly appreciated. Thanks all, stay safe. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. This concludes this Reddit